This song is for all those people out there who just don't understand what archaeology is all about. Nothing worse than being an archaeologist and having someone come up to you and say, dude, you must be into dinosaurs. Ancient
Hello, shirt shards and shatters, and welcome back to another episode of Archie Fantasies Watches Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse. I have done my best to cut these episodes down to, I'm trying to keep things around 30 minutes because it's just a lot of repetition from here on out, and so there's not really a whole lot of new things to say. It's just, you know, you can only watch me rant about things for so many times. And yeah, let's get on to episode 2. Okay, that's episode 1. Let's move on to episode 2, which is titled
Feces with Amnesia. Could we have forgotten a vital part of our own story? I'm Graham Hancock, and many archaeologists hate me for trying to find out.
Seriously? Dude, do you not understand that the people can disagree with you and not hate you? Asking you to prove your claims is not hate.
The notion of a lost advanced civilization of the Ice Age is extremely threatening to mainstream archaeology.
It's not threatening. First off, let's pretend like there is let's pretend like there is a civilization that formed around the Ice Age or existed during the Ice Age, and we have not discovered it yet. When we do discover it, it'll be really cool, and we will have a new chapter in prehistory that we can talk about as a group of humans. It changes absolutely nothing. It doesn't change the war in the Ukraine. It doesn't change the stock market. It doesn't change the price of gas. It doesn't change who's president right now. It changes absolutely nothing in the real world. All it does is now there's a bunch of people who can write books because now they have an actual factual civilization to talk about and to research and to discover. This grandiose idea that the world is going to change. Why do you think that? There is absolutely nothing that you're going to discover in ancient history that is going to impact today. It's not like there's a magical button that's going to get pushed as soon as you discover this lost civilization, and like all of history is just going to be caught up in a wormhole wave and suddenly we're living in an alternate reality.
Civilization of the Ice Age is extremely threatening to mainstream archaeology because it rips the ground out from under that entire discipline.
How? Literally the entire discipline of archaeology is to discover the history of humans. If you suddenly add a new chapter that is backed up by facts and evidence, it does not pull the rug out from under fucking neath my whole entire field. It expands it. It's fine. That's exactly what we do.
I don't care about that.
Obviously you do. Obviously you care very, very, very much. Did you not just say in the first episode that that is your overarching goal of this whole excursion, is to rip out the foundation of established history? Like, your words, not mine, man.
And one of the most mysterious and revealing mythologies of prehistory comes down to us through the ancient cultures of Mexico.
Sure. I got nothing against Mexico. A survivor in a time of chaos. I will admit the titles are very poetic.
History is written by the victors. That's especially true in Mexico.
That's not entirely true.
Spanish...
That is really kind of a misconception. And it's something that these guys tout a lot because they need to be the underdogs. He's right, I don't know anything about this. So, let's go to Google. Temple of Cholula. The Great Pyramid of Cholula, also known as, is a complex located in Cholula, Pueblo, Mexico. It is the largest archaeological site of a pyramid/temple in the New World, as well as the largest pyramid by volume known to exist in the world today. The Great Pyramid of Cholula. I'm just making sure this isn't like a Bosnian pyramid thing, which are not real. Sorry to break that to you. Pyramids are some of those traditionally viewed as being having been done as Quetzalcoatl. So I know how to say that. Quetzalcoatl? Don't come for me. Pyramid, courtyards, altars, building. Okay. Current importance. I don't see anything about controversy. Alright. Yeah, cool. It's real. Stamp of approval.
Until, like a series of Russian nesting dolls, we get to what's thought to be the first and oldest pyramid built here.
Again, as I said in the first episode, it is not uncommon for there to be multiple habitations at a site. I'm gonna speed this up again. What it does show is how important that site is and how long it has been important to the people around it. Why? Again, I'm not entirely sure. I had to look this one up. So this isn't uncommon to find, especially in temple style things like this. Like even Stonehenge has, I keep going back to Stonehenge because most people know Stonehenge. But even Stonehenge has multiple occupation and habitation sequences to it. And we keep discovering more and more pretty much every decade or so. I mean, like every 5 years anymore. If you were to tell me, like, if these have all been actually verified, and I think they have been, if you were to tell me that even inside that very first pyramid that there was an even smaller even smaller temple-like structure, I would totally believe you. There's probably somewhere in there, there's probably like a little mound of dirt that started it all, and it just got built on from that. I've worked at a site, Angel Mounds in southern Indiana, where that's pretty much the case. There's multiple mounds there, and the largest mound that's there has multiple occupation series, multiple building episodes on it, and it basically started off being, I mean, pretty impressive. I mean, they're not like minuscule, they're pretty impressive sized hills, and then they just kept building on it, and they kept building on it, and they just, by the time they got done with it, to the part that we have now, it's like a 2 terrace, almost 3 terrace mound now. And I mean, we don't know 100% for sure what it looked like in its heyday, but it very clearly had a heyday where it was fairly damn impressive. So yeah, this is really cool. It's really neat that we can verify that it goes back this far, as far as it does. So, you know, how are we going to twist this one so that it fits into Hancock's agenda? I don't know. Stick around and find out. I did speed this up, so if it starts to go really fast, that's honestly for my sanity. And I apologize. But I'm not going to tune it down unless I can't understand what's happening.
Do you get the sense that something may be missing from the archaeological and the historical story of ancient Mexico?
Well, not to be overly dramatic, but I think that a better understanding of Cholula would fundamentally change the perception of Mesoamerican history.
Does no one see something strange about 2 white dudes being in the belly of an ancient Mesoamerican temple talking about how if they could discover whatever the secret is about this particular temple, that they could rewrite the entire history of Mesoamerican history? I think I said history like one too many times there, but does anybody else see that? Does anybody else that sits okay with everybody else, that you've got 2 white dudes talking about how they're going to change Mesoamerican history? They're going to change it. And he doesn't understand why people don't like his theories.
That first pyramid was built.
The pyramid was built over an important spring.
Yeah.
Now, spring represents a passageway into the underworld, so it's clear.
Says who? Okay, first off, how do you know it's built over a spring? I didn't hear any of that. Haven't read any of that yet. Maybe it is. How do you know? Please explain. And secondly, in whose worldview is a spring the entrance to the underworld? Again, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying you really need to cite your sources and you really need to back that shit up. And secondly, Wait, that was secondly. And thirdly, it really does just sound like the two of you are just speculating for the sake of speculation at this point, but you're presenting it as facts because you've got a television show.
The fact that the pyramid was the structure that was chosen to be built upon that site is not accidental. On the contrary, I believe it's a critical clue to
I mean, yeah, probably it's not coincidental that the site was built where it's built. I mean, there's clearly a reason for it. There usually is. Who is the dude in the hat? Ah, dude, I missed the title card too. Damn. Title card! We're going back. We're going back. We're doing this again. Title card! Okay, but seriously, who is the dude in the hat? Jeff McCafferty? I'm not seeing him as an authority. I saw one paper about Cholula. Anyway. He's a real dude. I don't know if he's like the foremost expert in Cholula. I mean, this is not a deep dive, but it's not a little bit more than skimming the surface, so sure. Yeah, the rain. No, I'm not closing the door. Deal with it. It's keeping me sane. Alright, where were we? By the way, he's not at the University of Calgary anymore. He's at the University of Kentucky. So, why... They're probably doing this because the University of Calgary sounds cooler, but he's an adjunct at another college. It doesn't mean he's not Dr. McCafferty. It just means where they're claiming he's at is not... He's retired from there. Anyway. It's misleading, is my point. Anyway. Was that his doing or was that the show's doing? The world may never know.
an astounding
I'm
discovery.
going to believe him for the time being.
Well, not to be overly dramatic, but I think that a better understanding of Cholula would fundamentally change the perception of Mesoamerican history.
Okay, so going back to what I was originally saying before, I do actually have an issue of these two white dudes talking about how they're going to overturn all of Mesoamerican history. Like, who the hell are you? This isn't your history. I don't know. It's just very, very white savior-y of you.
It is a black hole. It is a black hole in Mexican history.
Do you think there was something here before that first pyramid was built?
The pyramid was built over an important spring.
Yeah.
Now, spring represents a passageway into the underworld, so it was clearly an important sacred space as well as a ceremonial focus.
I still want to know why that's true. I still want a validation of that. I understand that I said I'm giving this guy the benefit of the doubt, but I need evidence. I need a citation. I need a citation. It's not even evidence. I need a citation. I need something that I can go to and look at to verify what you just said.
That for one reason or another is regarded as sacred, that had a special magnetism that people could sense, that made it important and that made it matter.
One, it should not be surprising to people who pay attention that large monuments are being built over natural sites that are believed to be significant by the people who built shit. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Two, that doesn't mean that there's some crazy ass earth energy that's radiating up from the ground that grabbed hold of people's brains and made them believe that that place was mystical and magical, and therefore they built the monumental constructions upon those sites.
One of the former archaeologists found somewhere inside the pyramid an open room, and there were tunnels leading into it. It's never been published. I don't know what the current situation is.
That's a very tantalizing hint.
You think so?
Has that room ever been excavated? Has it ever been revisited?
Not that I know of.
You think at some point there was some research done on a room that has never been published and you can't relocate it. So the invisible teapot exists? Do you see what they just did there? They just literally threw a piece of speculation out. Literally the guy says, I can't verify this for you, but... And then the show just runs with it. The man admitted that he can't prove it to you, and the show is still going to take it as actual evidence. I just need you guys to absorb that.
Why hasn't this inner chamber ever been revisited? What secrets could it hold about the intentions of the original builders? Regardless, the fact that the Great Pyramid of Cholula has a hidden inner chamber at all, like its cousins in Gunung Padang and Giza.
These are not cousins. These are not related. Absolutely not related in any way, shape, or form, other than they all are things that exist within the world. They all belong to the subset of real places on Earth. That's where that similarity begins and ends. You know.
Is yet another striking feature shared by these structures. And there's more.
So it's pretty well established that the structure is oriented to the setting sun on the summer solstice.
That's correct.
A, prove it. B, not that uncommon. This isn't a weird thing. C, cite your fucking sources.
It's a mystery. Is it just coincidence?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Well,
The general
that's
view
too
that
bad.
archaeology puts forward is that pyramids around the world were built in the form that they have because that's the easiest way to make a high building.
Yep.
The problem is that these structures are universally associated with very specific spiritual ideas.
Nope.
What happens to us after death? This is always connected with pyramid structures. And that's
Nope.
the case whether you find them in
Nope.
Mexico, or whether you find them in ancient
Nope.
Egypt, or whether you find them in
Nope.
Cambodia, or whether you find them
Nope.
in India.
Nope.
It's a detail that defies the accepted mainstream view.
No.
Various human
No, it really
civilizations around
doesn't.
the world independently invented pyramids. What it suggests to me is that something else was going on behind the scenes.
No one has ever figured out how to build a pyramid before. The alignment to astrological, well, to the sun, to the solstices and that kind of shit. First off, any 2 points on a line are going to line up. So if you have point A and point B, eventually they're going to line up. And 2, why does he act like ancient peoples didn't understand the concept of a sun or the stars or the moon or the fact that those things have patterns or that it's the best way to tell time? Like, why is that so weird for him to accept? Like, if you don't have a clock and you don't have a concept of arbitrary time, which we kind of invented so that we could have clocks, how else are you supposed to tell time? Like, does Hancock think that people just kind of stumbled around with their eyes closed at all times of the day and are just like, oh my God, I wish I knew what time of day and what time of the year it was. I wish there was some way for me to look up into the sky and tell via the position of the celestial bodies what time of the year it is. Is that what he thinks was going on? Does he think that only modern people were the only people that can see stars? Like, he does understand that constellations are not the same across all cultures, right? Like, Orion doesn't exist in every freaking culture, but the concept of a constellation or the concept of a guide star does, because they're visually demonstrative. Even I can look up at the sky and find the star that doesn't move. Okay? I didn't need an ancient civilization, spiritual being to come down and beam that knowledge into my head. It's observation. We are fully capable as humans of observing natural phenomena and drawing conclusions or creating systems around that. So it should not be surprising to anyone anywhere that a lot of ancient structures are aligned to celestial events. It's literally how they tell time.
Could we be witnessing the unfolding of some extraordinary master plan?
No.
A shared legacy from a lost global civilization
Nope.
provided the seeds and the spark of inspiration from which many later civilizations grew.
No. Because there's never been evidence for hyperdiffusionism, which is exactly what he's claiming.
Could have much older origins than most. I'm not disputing the archaeological evidence that dates the first monumental construction on the site of the Great Pyramid of Cholula.
Aren't you, though? Aren't you? Isn't that exactly what you're doing?
To around 2,300 years ago. But there are older pyramids in Mexico. According to myth, the Great Pyramid of Cholula was the work of a race of giants.
I did forget to mention that in his most recent book about how Native Americans worshipped the superculture that existed before them in the United States, I did fail to mention that they were giants, because that detail did slip my mind, and I am now reminded that that Native Americans are descended from giants who aren't human. And yet, Hancock does not understand why people think his ideas are racist. Damn. If only it was obvious.
Archaeologists regard this as just a fanciful tale.
Archaeologists do not regard oral histories as fanciful tales. That is something an asshole would say. Archaeologists and anthropologists recognize the validity of oral histories, especially traditional oral histories of native peoples, because those histories are just as valid as the histories that we come up with, but not him. Not him. His histories are not valid. They're not based on any traditional oral history, and they're also not based on facts. So you gotta pick one. And since you're basically just using native mythology and native oral history to further your agenda of proving that there was a master race of people that existed before them, I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're not okay with you doing that either. How very Victorian of you.
But I think that by ignoring it completely, we're in danger of missing some important clues to the origins of this incredible place.
Perched atop this uniquely shaped hill is an ancient Aztec complex known as Texcoatzingo.
Title card!
Certainly a pre-Aztec site was simply reoccupied and reused.
It's a conclusion archaeologists would dispute, but there's some
No, it's not. Archaeologists are perfectly aware about site reuse. We literally have a term for it. It's called site reuse. We totally acknowledge the fact that a group of people can be the originators of a site who then leave for some reason, and then another group of people come along and go, hey, look at this really cool, already put together site. Let's live here. And then they add their bits and bobs to the site, and then they move on. We know this happens. We have whole terms for it. People have written entire papers. There's literal books about it. We don't. This is not a concept that we don't accept.
goes back all the way to the earliest known cultures of prehistoric Mexico.
I really don't understand what this whole discussion
he's
about
not
Tolkien
alone.
has to do with anything.
The global flood sent by the rain god sets the stage for the appearance of the most intriguing character in Mexican mythology,
Gotcha.
Quetzalcoatl.
Quetzalcoatl. There's a Quetzalcoatl hot sauce. I may need that in my life.
Way towards the east, promising one day to return.
Oh, so it's like a cargo cult.
The legend of Quetzalcoatl has been told for generations, even down to today.
Yes, such as a
We get a
oral
description of a
traditional
heavily
oral
bearded
history.
individual. He sounds a bit like a foreigner from across the ocean, and he brings the gifts of civilization.
Oh man, that would kind of hurt a little bit right here. So, Graham Hancock has decided that the traditional oral history of the god Quetzalcoatl is actually a real life story of a, quote, foreigner who brought knowledge to this land. And he's still worshipped to this day. That one just hurt. Yes, white man, please keep telling me about how the oral traditions of native people are actually about lost civilizations and not actually about their own actual history and their own actual gods. Please keep explaining that to me. I need native history white-splained to me, please. Ow. Anyway.
The myths of Mexico, and the story of Quetzalcoatl in particular, are tied to just such an apocalyptic moment.
Why are you only focusing on
believes
this
there's a record
one
Just a few hours drive
tradition,
south
this
of Mexico City,
one
amongst
story?
the ancient temples of Xochicalco.
Title card!
Like Cholula, this city was originally built by an indigenous culture we know little about, in the 7th century AD.
Well, they must have been giants.
I'm here to learn more about these so-called mythical characters.
For archaeologists, myths are fanciful and fragmentary.
No, they're
They
not.
ignore them completely in their attempts to reconstruct the past.
No, we don't.
But here at Xochicalco, some
You're the one who's picking and choosing and cherry picking which myths and stories you're choosing to follow and choosing to pay attention to. You're solely focusing on the rain god and Quetzalcoatl. You are completely ignoring that there's an entire pantheon of gods that are all part of this. Quetzalcoatl has siblings. I know, mind-blowing, isn't it? He's not an only child, but Hancock hasn't even mentioned that once. So which one of us is disregarding mystery or histories and oral histories and mythologies?
What's special about this temple?
So what you have on the lower tier of the pyramid is really a representation of the arrival of Quetzalcoatl that unfolds on the three sides of the pyramid until we get here to the first significant glyph here. And what you see there is a flaming
these things are
temple.
big.
You have these scrolls of
Damn, look how big those are. It's kind of cool. I didn't realize how large they were. I've never been there. What was it that Jason said about this, though? Jason said something about this guy. Okay, so this is Marco Vigato. Okay, yeah, okay. So this guy that we're talking to right now, this Marco guy, his name is Marco Vigato. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. He's also the guy who wrote a book celebrating the superior genes of white Atlanteans who hybridized everyone else.
smoke or fire.
As though it's on fire.
Right, exactly.
What about the coils of the serpent around it? How do you read those in this context?
Right, well, this is the tail of the serpent that sort of wraps around this
Why
flaming temple.
are you
It
reading
almost looks
this?
like a wave.
Are you an
It's like a
authority on
temple from
this?
the side. You could almost see that as a representation of an island.
You
So we have a
could,
temple
but that
which is on
doesn't mean
fire,
it is.
and waves are washing over it in your
Exactly.
reading. Yeah.
This is the whole ancient astronauts thing, only instead of it being a guy in a spaceship, it's this dude seeing seeing an island being flooded. Is that actually the interpretation of this? Probably not, but, you know, whatever. It furthers Hancock's argument, therefore, let's just run with it.
But there was no global cataclysm in that epoch that could have inspired the Quetzalcoatl myth. This misses the point. The tradition is certainly much older than the temple. How much older, no one knows. But there's one period of prehistory that fits the bill perfectly.
Archaeologists say this thing didn't happen during the time period that I say it happened at, but that's not the point. That doesn't mean I'm wrong. So even when you're wrong, you're not wrong? Is that how this works? So even when you're not right, you're still right? So you can never be wrong, basically. So you're moving the goalpost. It was here. Now it's over here. Maybe over here?
But I find it impossible to ignore how widespread these tales of civilizing heroes are.
Sometimes speaking of gods, sometimes of humans, who come in a time of chaos after the great cataclysm.
You've literally mentioned 3 cultures, maybe there were 4, who have a similar sounding story within them. And from that, you've drawn the conclusion that all cultures within the world have this exact same story, word for word, and that they are all the same story because they're all talking about the same event that has no evidence of ever occurring, and archaeologists are the ones that aren't getting it right. We're the ones reinterpreting other people's histories for our own purposes. Okay, episode 2 is over with. Giants are real. Archaeologists are stupid. Only Graham Hancock understands that giants are real and that they were the bringers of all culture and civilization, because one time he reinterpreted this one myth from another culture that he's not part of, and it clearly fit his exact need to prove his point. And archaeologists who actually study this kind of stuff and actually talk to descent communities and actually work with the peoples from those communities and those cultures, we don't know what the hell we're talking about, because we create false horizons and try to limit people like Graham Hancock, who are trying to bring enlightenment to people all around the world about an ancient lost civilization. because something history will change and profit. Okay, man, sure. Let's see my notes. We met Marco Vigato, who was the guy who reinterpreted all of the glyphs conveniently so that they supported Graham Hancock's theory. He is apparently also a person who believes that Atlanteans were a superior white race and that they hybridized with all other people on the planet in order to have... So we are all basically Atlantean hybrids, and some of you are more fortunate. Some of you are simply fortunate to have white genes in you. Graham Hancock can twist pretty much any oral history to prove his agenda with amazing speed, actually. Quetzalcoatl is a real-life person who really existed, who really was a giant, who really did come across from the ocean on a boat powered by serpents. And he really did come and teach all of the people about how to plant plants and keep animals alive, because there's an oral history about that at some point that he rightfully reinterpreted for everyone so that it, you know, fit his plans. Graham Hancock doesn't understand how to cite sources or provide evidence at all. And as a journalist, I would think that would be like the first thing that he was taught, because I remember when I took my journalism classes, and that was literally like the first semester class was how to cite sources, how to work that into what you're writing, and how to provide evidence, because people are going to question your claims and you need to be able to support them. Oddly enough, also one of the first things I was taught when I went into archaeology. It's almost like people expect you to be able to support an argument when you make one. Hancock can't understand that people reuse sites over time because I don't know why that one's so hard for him to understand, but apparently it is. Okay, everyone, thank you for sticking around for the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you've made it this far, let's put a serpent or a snake, or even if there's a feathered serpent one, I don't know, emoji down in the comments. And yeah, go ahead and you can leave an actual comment if you'd like. I do moderate comments, so if you put a crappy one down, I'll probably delete it. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one that will hopefully also be brief. So,
see, are you happy? Do you get it now? Do you get it? Honestly.